She stole. The scream cut through the cafe like a blade. Cups froze midair, forks clattered onto plates, and every head turned at once. The manager's face was red, his hands shaking as he waved a torn receipt like it was evidence in a courtroom. She stood in the center, pockets turned inside out, eyes wide, breath shallow. No one asked her anything. No one cared. The judgment had already been made. Phones rose instantly. Someone whispered, "Stream it." Another snickered, "Knew it." She wanted to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. Yesterday these same co-workers had laughed with her on break. Now their silence was sharper than the accusation. A barista's voice rang out, "She's been skimming tips for weeks." A lie, yet heads nodded. Betrayal had never felt so public. In the corner sat a man in a tailored suit. Calm, detached, spoon resting perfectly beside his untouched coffee. He didn't laugh. He didn't defend. His eyes followed every detail, her trembling fingers, the note that had fallen from her apron, the receipt ripped too neatly to be random. He typed something quickly on his phone and slid it back into his pocket. No one noticed. The manager barked, "Empty the apron." Coins clinked, a bus ticket, and the wrinkled sticky note, "Call when ready." Ready for what? She didn't remember anyone giving it to her. Murmurs rose louder, the note passed from hand to hand like proof of something darker. She shook her head, heat rushing to her face. "It's not mine." Her voice barely cut through the buzz. The barista laughed bitterly. "Always thought she was too nice. Guess nice girls steal too." The cafe chuckled nervously. No one left. Everyone wanted a front row seat. The smell of burnt espresso filled the air like smoke after a fire. She looked for a door, an escape, but every exit felt locked by eyes. The suited man finally moved. Not toward her. Not toward the chaos. He placed a card, face down, on the table. Not a tip, not a gesture, an invitation, or maybe a warning. Embossed letters glimmered briefly before disappearing under the cafe's dim light. He didn't slide it closer. He left it there, waiting. Her chest tightened. If she grabbed it, she'd look guilty. If she ignored it, she'd lose something she didn't understand yet. The cameras were still rolling. The laughter was still cutting. Her boss kept shouting, but his words blurred into noise. All she could feel was the weight of that card across the room. She turned without speaking. Cold air rushed in as the door opened. Snowflakes stung her cheeks, harsher than the voices behind her. The cafe swallowed her absence, but inside, the card remained, untouched, humming with questions no one dared ask. The man checked his watch, 8:17. Then he looked at the torn receipt, at the note, and at the door she had just walked through. No answers came. Only silence. Only tension. Something irreversible had begun. Snow stung her face as she stumbled onto the street, breath steaming in the night air. Behind the glass, laughter carried on, muffled but still cruel. She wrapped her arms around herself, wishing she could peel off the shame burning her skin. A car sped past, horn blaring, spraying her with slush. She didn't move. Where could she go? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You left something behind." She froze. No one had her number, no one except her boss and a few co-workers. Another buzz, 8:17. "Don't be late again." Her chest tightened. 8:17, the exact time the man in the cafe had checked his watch. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She deleted the message, but the words burned in memory. "Hey!" A voice snapped her back. Two teens laughed, one holding his phone out. They'd been filming her since the cafe. "Smile, thief," one shouted, shoving the screen in her face. She shoved past, their laughter chasing her down the block. Every corner had eyes. Every shadow carried whispers. She ducked into the subway, clutching the railing as a train screamed into the station. The roar drowned out her thoughts, but not the panic. She fished through her bag, empty. She hadn't even been paid this week. Rent was overdue. Food? Forget it. Survival pressed harder than the shame. Across the platform, a figure stood too still for the chaos around. Same suit. Same presence. He wasn't looking at her directly, but she felt it. When the train doors slid open, he stepped inside without hurry, leaving her frozen. Her train arrived seconds later. She hesitated, then boarded. The sticky note, the card, the texts, they clung to her like invisible chains. The train jolted forward. She gripped the pole, fighting to breathe. Around her, commuters scrolled phones, chewed gum, ignored the world. Normal lives. Stable lives. She bit her lip hard enough to taste iron. Why her? Why tonight? The words replayed, call when ready. Ready for what? At the next stop, a folded envelope slid onto the seat beside her. No one claimed it. Inside, $50, crisp. And a single word scrawled in ink, decide. Her heart pounded. Decide what? Who left it? She scanned the faces around her, blank, tired, indifferent. No eyes met hers. The train screeched into the next station, doors opening. The envelope nearly slipped from her hands. She wanted to throw it away, but couldn't. She shoved it into her jacket as the doors hissed shut. She didn't know it yet, but every move she made tonight was already being counted. The envelope felt heavier than it was, her fingers numb around the edges. She replayed the word inside, decide. Decide what? The train screeched, bodies swayed, and she clung to the pole. At the next stop, 2 men in security jackets boarded. Not police, private. Their eyes scanned the car until one of them pointed. That's her. Her stomach dropped. She shoved the envelope deeper into her coat and pushed through the crowd. Ma'am, we need to talk, one said, voice firm but not loud enough for anyone else to care. She bolted. The doors hissed open and she lunged out, nearly tripping on the platform edge. Voices behind her, stop. Wait. She didn't. Up the stairs, through the turnstile, breath ragged. Streetlights smeared in the wet night. She ducked into an alley, pressed her back to the wall, gasping. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Running won't help. You're late. She nearly dropped it. Her throat burned. How did they know? A door opened behind her. She spun. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, coat too thin for the cold. Their eyes met. You too, the woman whispered. Confused, she stammered, what? The stranger handed her a folded flyer before hurrying off into the rain. She unfolded it, debt relief consultation. Confidential. 8:17 p.m. Same time. Same phrase. Her knees weakened. This wasn't random. The flyer had an address printed across the bottom. She recognized the street, it was near the cafe. Why there? Why her? She stuffed it in her pocket just as the security men's voices echoed from the corner. She slipped through the opposite end of the alley, legs trembling. As she reached the main road, a bus roared by. On the side, an ad, decide today. Tomorrow might be too late. The same word. The same message. Her chest tightened, panic mixed with something else, a pull, an eerie sense of being dragged into a game she hadn't chosen. She staggered into a diner for cover, collapsing into a booth. A waitress set down a glass of water, eyeing her. Rough night? She asked softly. Before she could answer, the waitress slid a receipt toward her. Scrawled across it in the same sharp handwriting, "Call when ready." Her hands shook so badly the glass tipped, water spilling across the table. She shoved the receipt back. "Who gave you this?" she demanded. The waitress shrugged. "Guy in a suit. Said you'd understand." Her breath hitched. The cafe, the subway, the texts, the flyer, now this, everywhere she turned, he was one step ahead. But why? Who was he? The diner door creaked open. A shadow crossed the window. She gripped the envelope tighter, heart racing. The next move wasn't hers anymore. The diner's hum blurred into silence as she clutched the receipt. Her pulse hammered against her throat. The waitress hovered, uneasy. "You okay?" she asked, but her voice barely registered. All she could see was the scrawl, "Call when ready." Same words, same hand. She pushed out of the booth, the envelope still pressed against her chest. Outside, the street was slick with rain, neon bleeding across the puddles. Across the road, the suited man leaned casually against a black car, smoking like he had all the time in the world. Their eyes locked. For a moment, she expected him to speak, to explain, to end it. He didn't. He flicked the cigarette, slid into the car, and drove away. No chase. No answers. Only distance. Her phone buzzed again. A new message: "You're not the first. Don't be the last." Attached was a blurred photo, her, inside the cafe earlier, surrounded by phones. But in the corner of the shot was something she hadn't seen before, another woman, face half hidden, staring directly at her with the same sticky note in her hand. The ground tilted beneath her. Who was she? Why hadn't anyone noticed? Her fingers trembled as she zoomed in, but the image distorted into static. Another buzz, 817. Same address. Her breath caught. She yanked the flyer from her pocket, the debt consultation notice, the same time printed at the bottom. The address matched the message. Someone wanted her there. Someone had planned this from the start. But every instinct screamed trap. She remembered the men in security jackets, the stranger who whispered, "You too?" Were they all pieces of the same puzzle? Or enemies circling? The clock on her phone read 8:04. 13 minutes. 13 minutes to decide whether to walk straight into whatever this was, or run forever. Her hands shook as she shoved the phone away. She started walking, fast, head down against the rain. Each step echoed with questions: was the suited man saving her, or setting her up? Was the envelope bait, or protection? And who was the woman in the photo? The building loomed ahead, dim lights glowing behind dusty windows. Her heart hammered louder than the traffic. She pushed the door open. A bell chimed softly, too soft for the weight in her chest. Inside, rows of folding chairs faced a bare stage. Only 3 people sat scattered, silent, each clutching identical sticky notes. They all turned when she entered. And on the stage, a microphone waited, its red light already on. The room smelled faintly of dust and coffee, the hum of the microphone filling the silence. She hesitated at the doorway, shoes squeaking against the floor. 3 pairs of eyes followed her every move, blank, almost rehearsed. Each clutched the same sticky note. One man nodded at her like he'd been expecting her all along. A woman in the second row whispered, "Late again." The words chilled her blood. Again? She'd never been here before. She wanted to ask who they were, what this was, but the microphone crackled before she could speak. "Step forward," a voice boomed through the speakers, distorted but calm. She froze. No one was at the mic, no figure on the stage. The 3 in the chairs turned back to face front, like obedient students. "We don't tolerate hesitation," the voice added. Her knees wobbled. She forced herself forward, the envelope still hidden in her coat. As she climbed the small platform, the speaker cut off. Dead air. The people in the chairs didn't move. She glanced at them, expressionless, waiting. Then her phone vibrated. A new message: "You're not ready. Leave now if you value what's left." Her chest tightened. Leave? Stay? Every instinct screamed danger, but her pride was louder. She gripped the mic. "Who are you? Why me?" Her voice cracked. A hiss through the speaker, then laughter, low, deliberate. "Not why. When?" The mic cut out again. The lights above flickered, buzzing like angry bees. For a moment, darkness pressed in. When the lights steadied, one of the three people was gone. Empty chair. No one saw him leave. Her pulse spiked. "Where did he?" she started, but the woman in the second row interrupted. "He failed." Cold, final. The floor felt unstable under her shoes. She clutched the mic stand, fighting dizziness. Failed what? She wasn't part of anything. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs refused. Another vibration in her pocket. Decide. Last warning. The man in the suit suddenly appeared at the back of the room, silent, leaning against the wall. Her stomach twisted. He wasn't watching the stage, he was watching her. Everyone else ignored him, as if he were invisible. She wanted to shout his name, but she didn't know it. Her throat burned. The air grew heavier, questions piling faster than she could breathe. She wasn't here to win anything. She wasn't ready for tests she didn't understand. But somehow, she already knew, walking away would cost more than staying. The mic light blinked red again. The voice returned, softer this time. "One decision changes everything. Don't waste it." The voice faded, the mic light went dark. Silence pressed heavy on the room. She looked again at the back wall, empty. The suited man was gone, as if he'd never been there. Her stomach tightened. No footsteps. No door. Just absence. Her phone buzzed again. This time, not a number, an image. Blurry, but recognizable, the woman from the cafe photo, the one clutching the same sticky note. Now the picture showed her clearly, standing in front of the same building where she was now. Same flyer in her hand. Same time, 8:17, scribbled across the top. Her breath caught. She scanned the room, heart hammering. The two remaining figures sat stiff, unbothered. But at the far corner, near a flickering light, someone else had appeared. A woman. Mid-30s, sharp features, damp hair sticking to her cheeks. Her eyes locked with hers. The same eyes from the photo. The stranger raised a finger to her lips, silence, and then held up her own sticky note. Same words, "Call when ready." But hers had something added in bold black ink: "Don't trust them." She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the mic flickered red again. The voice returned. "Not all who sit here deserve to stay." The woman in the corner dropped her note to the floor, as if defying the command. The room's lights flickered violently, shadows slicing across the walls. When they steadied, the chair beside her was empty again. The man who had nodded at her earlier, gone. No trace. She gasped. What's happening? Where did they go? But no one replied. The woman in the corner bent down, picked up the dropped note, and slid it across the floor toward her. It stopped right at her shoe. Her hands trembled as she crouched to grab it. The message was scrawled in uneven letters beneath the familiar phrase, "You weren't supposed to be here tonight." The mic cut in sharply, drowning her thoughts. Decisions define futures. Fail once, you disappear. Fail twice, you don't come back. The voice was colder now, almost mechanical. The two stiff figures in the chairs stared forward, their expressions blank. She looked back to the corner. Empty. The woman was gone. Again. Her throat closed. Every path split into fear: stay and risk vanishing like the others, or leave and never know why she'd been dragged into this. Her phone buzzed once more. This time only 3 words: she survived once. The lights dimmed. The microphone hissed. And her decision pressed closer than ever. Her phone buzzed again before she could breathe. This time, a location pin blinked on the screen. Different from the flyer's address, different from the cafe. A warehouse near the docks. A single line beneath it: prove it. Her pulse raced. Prove what? Her fingers shook as she stuffed the phone away. The room around her was too still, the two silent figures unmoving, the mic dead. She backed toward the door, desperate for air, desperate for something real. Outside, rain slammed against her face. She ran until the glow of the diner faded, until the streets blurred into neon streaks and shadows. Her shoes slapped against wet pavement, lungs burning. She didn't stop until she reached the bus stop. A bench. Shelter. Breath. She opened her coat, the envelope still there. $50 and that word, decide. She gripped it tight, half tempted to rip it apart, but she couldn't. It was the only thing keeping her tethered to something. A bus pulled up. She boarded, collapsed into a seat, dripping rainwater. Across from her, a kid, 16, maybe, stared at her with wide eyes. He held up his phone. Her face glared back at her from the screen. Headline: Local barista caught stealing, video goes viral. Her stomach dropped. The comments scrolled below: brutal, unforgiving. She shut her eyes. Then the kid whispered, "I don't think you did it." She froze. He slid something across the seat, a folded slip of paper. She opened it, another sticky note, same handwriting. But this time it said, "We watch because you matter." Her heart twisted. Matter to who? For what? Before she could ask, the kid pulled the cord, jumped off the bus, and disappeared into the rain. For the first time that night, she felt something other than fear, a spark. Someone believed her. Someone knew she wasn't what the world now thought. The bus jolted, stopped again. She looked up, and saw the warehouse from the location pin looming through the fog. The driver turned his head slightly, eyes cold, and said flatly, "End of the line." Her fingers tightened around the envelope. Her heart told her to run, but her pride wouldn't let her. She stepped off the bus, rain pouring harder, the warehouse door creaking open by itself. Inside, dim lights buzzed. Footsteps echoed. And for the first time all night, she heard his voice, not distorted, not through a speaker, but close, real, steady: "You came." The warehouse smelled of oil and rust, shadows stretching long across the floor. She froze just inside the doorway, rain dripping from her coat. He stood near a desk littered with papers, his suit immaculate despite the damp air. This time no smoke, no crowd, no distortion, just him. "You came," he repeated, voice calm, almost approving. She wanted to scream at him, demand answers, but all that came out was a hoarse, "Why me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slid a file across the desk. Her name printed on the cover in block letters. She snatched it open. Inside were copies of her bills, her lease, even the debt notice she hadn't told anyone about. Tucked in the back, a photo of her from years ago, working at a different cafe, smiling at a customer. The date in the corner? 8/17, her breath caught. "You've been watching me?" "Not just you," he said. His eyes flicked to the walls. She followed his gaze, photos pinned in rows, dozens of faces. Every one of them holding the same sticky note: "Call when ready." Her knees buckled. "What is this?" she whispered. He stepped closer, voice low. "A choice." He pointed at a clock on the wall. 8:16, 1 minute until the cursed number. Her chest tightened. Every thread, every note, every warning, all circling this moment. Her phone buzzed. A new message: "Don't trust him. Don't fail twice." She spun, but no one else was there. Only his calm stare, steady as stone. "Where are they now?" she asked, pointing at the photos. He didn't answer. Instead, he picked up one picture, a young man she didn't recognize, and tore it in half. The sound echoed in the empty warehouse. Her phone buzzed again. Another image. The mysterious woman from before, the one in the cafe, the one who had handed her the flyer. Now she was bound to a chair, a spotlight burning down on her. Text beneath: "She didn't decide fast enough." Her stomach lurched. She looked at him, desperate. His expression didn't change. "Decisions define futures," he said quietly. "Tonight defines yours." The clock ticked over to 8:17. The lights in the warehouse cut out. Darkness swallowed the warehouse, the hum of the clock silenced mid-tick. She froze, heart pounding, ears straining for any sound. Then, a single light snapped on overhead, a spotlight cutting the space in half. She stood in the glow, exposed. Beyond the edges, only shadow. "Every second matters," his voice drifted through the dark, calm but sharp. She spun, searching, but couldn't see him. Another light flickered to life. A chair. Someone tied to it. Her chest clenched. It was the woman from the photo, head slumped forward, wrists bound. She stumbled toward her, whispering, "Hey, can you hear me?" The woman stirred, eyes fluttering open. For a split second, their gazes locked. Then the woman mouthed two words: "Don't stay." Before she could react, the suited man stepped into the light, composed as ever. He ignored the woman, his attention fixed entirely on her. "You keep running from answers," he said, "but answers are earned." He gestured toward the bound figure. She hesitated. She lost. Her throat closed. "What do you want from me?" Her voice cracked, breaking in the silence. He reached into his coat, pulled out another envelope, identical to the one she carried. He placed it on the chair in front of her. "Inside is the next step. But once you open it, there's no turning back." Her fingers hovered above the envelope, trembling. Behind her, the bound woman groaned weakly. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She fumbled it out, another message: "It's a trap. Walk away now." Her pulse raced. The man's eyes stayed locked on hers, unblinking. "Decide," he said softly. "Or someone else decides for you." The lights shifted again. More chairs lit up around the warehouse. Each one occupied. Faces she didn't know, men and women staring blankly ahead, all with sticky notes taped to their hands. Rows of them, stretching into the dark. Her knees shook. "What is this?" she whispered. He finally smiled, cold and thin. "The same choice everyone gets." He leaned closer. "But not everyone survives it." The clock buzzed back to life overhead. 8:17 flashed red across the wall. The sound of gears turning filled the space. And then, silence again. The silence after the gears stopped was unbearable. She stood frozen, envelope in hand, rows of blank faces staring at her, the bound woman's shallow breathing echoing in the dark. Her chest heaved. She had run all night, from accusations, from shadows, from herself. But now there was no more running. The suited man stepped forward. Calm. Inevitable. "You want answers. You deserve them. But answers always demand a cost." His voice carried no threat, only certainty. He pointed at the rows of people. Every one of them sat where you stand. Every one was offered the same choice. Her throat tightened. Why me? He met her eyes, steady. Because you refused to break when it was easiest to give in. At the cafe, you could have screamed, begged, run. But you stood there and took their judgment. Weak people fold. Strong ones endure. He gestured toward the woman tied to the chair. She hesitated. She let fear define her. And fear has no place here. Tears stung her eyes. What is here? He finally answered. Opportunity. Power. The kind of chance you don't ask for, you're chosen for it. We test character under fire. Not degrees. Not money. Endurance. Discipline. The strength to stand alone when the world mocks you. The photos on the wall, the sticky notes, the texts, suddenly they fit. Not random torment, but deliberate design. A system. A filter. He held out his hand. Open the envelope. Her fingers shook as she tore it. Inside, a contract. No small print. No tricks. Just one line, partnership offer, sign if ready. Her heart pounded. You're a billionaire, he finished. Yes. But wealth means nothing without someone willing to fight through fire to earn it. I don't need workers. I don't need servants. I need equals. People who know pain, loss, humiliation, and still refuse to quit. Her chest caved in with sobs she had been holding back since the cafe. Every insult, every betrayal, every humiliation, they hadn't been her end. They were her proof. Proof she could survive. Proof she could rise. The bound woman stirred again, whispering, "Don't trust him." But now she understood, trust was never the point. Belief in herself was. The man extended a pen. This moment decides everything. Not me. You. Her hand hovered, trembling, then steadied. She signed. The warehouse lights blazed on. The blank faces vanished, only empty chairs remained. The woman in the chair disappeared too, like smoke after a storm. Only she and the man remained. He smiled, not cold this time, but proud. Welcome to the life you've been running from. Now it's yours to build. She exhaled, shoulders shaking, tears mixing with a smile. For the first time all night, she felt it, not fear, not shame, but power. Outside, the city roared as always, blind to what had just begun. She stepped into the rain, not broken anymore, but remade. And for the first time, she wasn't asking why me. She was whispering to herself, finally me.